In today's video, we'll be looking at the questions that if you answer yes to, you should not do a Roth conversion in retirement. Over the hundreds of successful retirements that we've helped clients plan while operating in the financial space, we at Rubino and Langwell Partners have seen countless Roth conversions harm people's retirement simply because they weren't in the right position to do one. That's why we're making this video today. Ryan Marston is going to walk you through some of the key questions to ask yourself to see if you should do a Roth conversion in retirement. Let's get right into it.
Question 1, are you within 5 years of needing the money? This is an important question to consider if you're just beginning to consider Roth conversions or maybe opening up that new account to start Roth conversion going forward. Well, there's a 5-year wait period before you can start accessing the funds without any potential penalties. If you're over the age of 59 and a half and you're just considering maybe opening a Roth IRA and starting to make Roth conversions, you want to make sure the timeline of when you're going to start drawing from the Roth funds fits what you're trying to achieve so you're not penalized moving forward. What are some of the additional consequences? Well, if you do need to start accessing those funds within a 5-year period, you could be penalized the conversion amount. So if you converted $20,000 and that $20,000 grew to $30,000, and you started pulling up those funds or making a withdrawal from the $30,000, well, you can be taxed on the earnings or penalized on the earnings from that initial conversion if you hadn't waited a 5-year period from when you opened up the Roth IRA. So if you answered yes to the question of needing the funds within a 5-year time period from starting Roth conversions, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do Roth conversions, but you want to make sure you know the ramifications of going forward with those Roth conversions. It still may be some capacity to start the process, but you want to make sure you're not going to penalize yourself in the long run. Question 2, do you have no cash outside IRAs to pay the conversion taxes? This is an important question to consider when going over the process of Roth conversions, because you want to make sure you have the funds outside of the IRA or the Roth IRA to pay the taxes. The reason for this is you want all that Roth conversion money to go to work for you, to earn tax-free, income tax-free in the future. So if you have savings outside, checking outside, after-tax brokerage accounts outside, that might be the best avenue to pay the taxes so you can get all that conversion money going to work. What are the consequences of ignoring this question during the Roth conversion process? Well, again, using an example of $30,000, if you had to pay the taxes out of that conversion money, well, all that $30,000 isn't going to be going into your Roth IRA to earn tax-free moving forward. Part of it is going to have to go to the federal and potentially state taxes, where if you're using outside funds in a checking account or savings account to pay the taxes, all of that $30,000 can go to work for you and earn tax-free growth. So why does answering yes to this question indicate that you might not consider a Roth conversion? Well, it might not have the impact of converting the entire amount into a Roth IRA if a portion of it has to go to taxes. You're losing some of the benefit of that compounded tax-free growth moving forward, where sometimes it could make sense to just stay put in your traditional pre-tax IRA. How can you determine if you have the right type of funds to make this Roth conversion work the most efficient way possible for you? Well, you have to take a look at all your accounts: checking, savings, taxable accounts, pre-tax accounts, and tax-free. And then you want to really map everything out and make sure that you're using the most efficient process moving forward. Question number 3, will your tax rate be lower in retirement? This is one of the more important questions to consider when looking into the Roth conversion process and seeing if it makes sense for you. If you're going to be in a considerably lower tax rate in retirement, well, it might not make sense to make Roth conversions at your currently higher tax rate. The current tax code and sunsetting of the current tax code still is up in the air, but we can gauge whether or not you're going to be in a lower tax bracket or tax threshold in retirement, and whether or not it makes sense to you to consider or not consider Roth conversions in the current year. If we can gauge that you're in at less expenses and have less income in your retirement years by a considerable amount, well, you might not want to pay the current tax rates and in the future potentially have lower tax rates. What are the consequences of ignoring this question during the decision-making process of the Roth conversion? Well, you could be making a big tax mistake. You could be paying upwards of 5 to 10% more in taxes on this money if you're not weighing what your current tax rate is and your potential future tax rate is. There's a lot up in the air, like we previously talked about with the current tax code. We have a good gauge of what your income earnings is now and what it potentially will be in the future when you're drawing from your assets. So avoiding this question could make a huge mistake in your taxes in retirement. Does answering yes to this question indicate you should not do a Roth conversion? Possibly. If your margin is pretty wide with what your current tax rate is in your projected tax rate, well, you might not want to consider that Roth conversion today. All that means is you might have more capacity in retirement to actually make those Roth conversions at that lower rate, which is the case a lot of times. How do you determine the answer to the question? Well, you can take a look at your most recent taxes and see what you're paying out or what your highest marginal rate was. The highest marginal rate is the highest tax bracket that you pay taxes in. Anything you would potentially be converting would get added on top of that and maybe even cross over to that next bracket. So you want to take a look at where you stand now and also project out where you will be in retirement when you're making the money that you're making today from earned income. Question 4, will the conversion push you into a higher tax bracket today? This is an important question to ask yourself or to consider when you're looking at making the Roth conversion, because that elevated tax bracket or that next tax bracket that a Roth conversion could push you in could make a sizable impact to your overall taxes. While maybe the 22 to 24% federal bracket isn't a big jump, that 24 to 32% bracket is an 8% jump. That is a big difference in taxes where if you can avoid, it might make sense in doing so. What are the consequences of ignoring this question during the decision-making process? Well, if you're just ignoring the question, you could be having an 8% plus difference in your federal taxes that you could have easily avoided. Again, that maybe a 2% jump in the bracket might not change your mind or change the outcome of you making a Roth conversion, but 8% jump or greater might make a sizable impact to your overall taxes in a negative fashion. If you did answer yes to this question, you need to take a look at what that jump in the bracket is. And if it's a significant jump in the bracket and a big impact to your overall tax structure, you might consider weighing on any Roth conversions for the future. How do you determine the answer to this question and what factors should you look at? Well, you want to take a look at what your highest marginal tax rate is. That's the highest federal tax rate that you are charged on your income. Then you want to take a look at how much income you had and how much capacity you have until that next bracket. If you don't have much and all of a sudden that next bracket is a big jump in taxes, you might want to consider waiting until future years to make those Roth conversions so you don't sacrifice taxes today. Question 5, do you plan to leave your IRA to a tax-exempt charity? This is an important question to ask because if you're planning to leave your IRA to a tax-exempt charity, or even make qualified charitable distributions in retirement, well, those distributions or leaving the money to the charity, that isn't a taxable event. So if you're considering a Roth conversion and that is the ultimate goal of what your IRA is or what you're trying to achieve with your IRA, well, you might want to avoid the Roth conversion because you're paying unnecessary taxes today. So what are some other consequences? Well, again, at 70.5, you're allowed to make what's called a qualified charitable distribution from an IRA. If you make that distribution, you aren't taxed on that event. So if you're doing a Roth conversion today and you have plans to leave assets to a charity or gift to a charity in the future, well, you might be paying those unnecessary taxes today on the Roth conversion when you wouldn't be paying any taxes on a qualified distribution in the future. If you did answer yes to this question, it's a pretty clear cut that you should not make a Roth conversion today. You're paying unnecessary taxes when in the future you could be leaving those assets to a charitable foundation without any tax ramifications.
Thanks, Ryan. That was great. And now that you know the questions that if you answer yes to, you should not do a Roth conversion, you can plan a better retirement future for yourself. Now, doing a Roth conversion is a huge decision and it's not one that you should leave to chance. And since this is only a general YouTube video, we can't actually sit down and analyze your situation one-on-one and help you determine what to do. But we do want to help you achieve the most successful retirement possible. So we want to offer you an entirely free call where we can meet with you, we'll look at your situation, and help you determine if you should do a Roth conversion. So if that is something that sounds interesting to you, click on the first link in the description. Until next time, take care.